Kind Father, as we take some time this afternoon to discuss things that are important to our life here, we'd ask that your Spirit would be here as Katrina speaks and also as I speak a bit today. May we provide knowledge that will be helpful for your people, and may it be something that they can use in life. Bless and lead and guide us today. In the name of your Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen. So I'll tell you the short story before I bring Katrina up. So I told you I worked in the industry for mortgages and real estate from about 99 to 2008. Why did I stop in 2008? The market collapsed. So you can have an idea. The difference in income from 2006 to 2008 was $160,000 less from that year to from 2 years later. So I took a little segue in 2008 because I was just exhausted living in the DC area. I was just grinding myself, and it was all about, and I had just gotten too imbalanced. Now we need to make money here to survive, and so the Lord requires balance, right, for you. So I took a break. I segued off into ministry. I think I could have been a little more balanced at that time, but at any rate, I had some IRS obligations that came up, and we got into a dispute between me and the Internal Revenue Service of whether I had sent in my taxes and whether I hadn't. And so who do you think won? No. And even though my accountant had sent them off, that number grew, and there is a special kind of math that the IRS uses that is not available to the rest of us for any investment you do unless you're selling some of that little white powder. All right. So by the time I focused back on work, because I was dealing with ministry, you know, IRS debts, if you leave them alone long enough, if you stay under the radar, there is a point where they don't matter anymore. So you can basically get rid of them. I wasn't trying to, but I was close to that time. But I said, let me just go ahead and deal with this. But this number became insurmountable to the tune of just under $300,000. It was $298,000, right? So you're like, what are you going to do? So this is where I said to you guys today, the song says he is able. God is able to do things. I didn't do anything out of line. I didn't do anything inappropriate. I followed the guidelines. At that time, as I was working to get my income up, because there's a reasonable income that, you know, you need to support a family. And I've always pretty much worked for myself, but it was taking me a little time, and I couldn't figure out why I was struggling so hard at this point, as I had the mortgage industry was the third business I had been in. I had been in the computer industry for 16 years. And then we sold that business when I was in the Maryland area. So by God's grace, working, the Lord has always been blessed my efforts when I worked hard and did what I was supposed to do. But my income wouldn't increase. But I had this big debt sitting out there. And I said, how am I going to deal with this? And we prayed about it. So the IRS has a program called Offer and Compromise. The Offer and Compromise program is designed strictly around what you can afford to pay. So I had a guy say, hey, I'll do it for you, a tax accountant. And he said, I just need $3,000. And I looked at the forms and I was like, the numbers are what they are. And I didn't realize it as well at that point, Katrina. And I said, I'm not paying you anything. And we prayed about it, and I took that form and I did that form. And because my numbers were so high of what I owed, it had to go through several different groups to get approved. So I submitted it in. Remember, I was arguing, and MIdvale said, I think there's a reason why your income is not high enough. They established what you can pay based on what your income and obligations are. So when I did that form and everything was finished, I sent it in. First we went to the IRS, and the lady, we were afraid. You know, when you go, there's certain people you go to and you can kind of have fear. Now, it's not a criminal offense. Do you need me to do something different? It's not a criminal offense or anything that I had done, but you consider it almost criminal because the IRS can take everything from you. They can shut you down, lock your bank accounts. They're not generally nice people, I think. But the lady was extremely nice. It was comforting. Me and my wife came out like, oh, well, that was a good start, you know. And we turned in our form, but she didn't have any power because the IRS has all these levels. So my form had to go from there to somewhere else. And then because my debt was so high, anything that exceeds $50,000 has to get an additional sign-off. So the one lady said, I've approved you and I've sent it in, but it has to go up a level. The IRS works on their own time. I think in that way they have some connection with God. You don't know. The Lord says, I'm coming soon. But it's not going to be tomorrow, right? But you should be ready tomorrow. The IRS is the same way. When I turned in the form, I said, how long is this going to take? They said, well, you could be anywhere from 6 to 9 months to as much as a year for this process. So everything in your life is kind of waiting. You have that thing in your life that's like, until this is cleared, it's just back there. It's something back there you got to deal with, right? So finally, the approval came through. Do you know how much I was approved for to pay? By my form, $3,850 some. Praise
the Lord.
And I have the satisfied document. Paid in full. Yeah, about at his number, and I've already satisfied it. So I'm clean. So when I say God is able, amen, I'm not telling you to go get in a tax situation. Pay your taxes and do it timely. But God can make a way. When you look, that mountain seemed insurmountable. I said to myself, Jimmy, you've made good money over the years, but how long is it going to take you to pay this off? That was a house that was there. So he is able to do above and beyond. So even if something in front of you seems beyond possible, if you trust God, if you're faithful and do what's right, he will move mountains for you. Amen. So we'll have Katrina come up and share a little about goals, which is very, very important. They say if you do not write things down, it just doesn't mean anything. Even though it's sitting in your head all the time, I'm going to do so-and-so. You got to write it down before it matters and then measure yourself time after time. I missed that goal. Oh, Lord, help me. So go ahead and share that.
Okay. I'm very excited today because we also have little ones here. We have young people here too, because this thing you can use in any situation. Next time when your mom say, hey, let's go for vacation, show this to them and that's plan it, and that's how it works. Okay? Good. See, yes, when I was little, one of my teachers asked us to write an article. And the topic of the article is, what is your dream? And we all write it down. What is it? But that's the end of it. I wish that teacher knew a little bit about goal setting and dream. See, dream without a goal, without goals, it is just wishful thinking. Or goals without written plan, it's just a dream. Poof, it's there. Today we write it down, tomorrow we forgot all about it. Why is goal important, and why do we have to write it down? J.C. Penney said that hey, if you give me a stock clerk with a goal, I will give you a man who will make history. But if you give me a stock clerk without a goal, I'll give you a stock. If a person without a goal, then I will give you a stock clerk. See, a person without goals are like archers with everything but without target. I know you guys are fantastic archers. I know you are because the Bible tell me that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. But can you imagine that you have your bow, you have your arrows, but without target? Where are you going to hit if you don't know your targets are? Let me tell you a story. Last Friday, I was invited to Junior Achievement to be one of the volunteers. Junior Achievement is one of the non-profit organizations teach high school students entrepreneurship, how to do impromptu speech when interviewed. And the event was sponsored by big corporations in Tucson, like Tucson TPE, Fry's, and Vantage West Credit Union. Actually, one of the credit union's CEOs came to encourage the kids by making a motivational speech and follow up with a Q&A at the end of the meeting. And there were about 150 to 200 students there. They asked a lot of questions. But one of two questions stick to me. One of the students asked Mr. Ramirez, his name is Robert Ramirez, Mr. Ramirez, do you always know that you're going to be a CEO of a bank? The other student asked, Mr. Romero, would you please advise us how to become a successful person? Mr. Romero answered, and I'm paraphrasing. He said, when I was young, I know what I want. But when I was 27 years old, I focused my study on finance and banking. When I was 44, I became one of the CEOs in a bank. He said, I did a lot of reading. I do a lot of planning and research as well. Keep your plan visual. Place it at the place that you can check it daily. That's what he said. And in the other word, if we identify our target, then we can direct all our arrows to it. That's how I take it. There are only 4 steps in the goal setting process. The whole process is simple, but it was not easy. And this is the process. First of all, write down your goals. Then write down why you have that goal. Find out how to achieve that goal and list all the what task you need to take in order for you to reach that goal. Write down your goals every day. Take 10 minutes of your time and write 10 to 20 things that you would like to achieve in next 5 years. In next 5 years, 10 minutes of your time. This exercise will cultivate you to form a habit of finding your visions, your goal that you want to do. This exercise will also crystallize what really matters to you. I know a person who wants to be a millionaire. You know, the year he become millionaire, he is done. He said, I'm done. I don't know what else to do. Day-to-day life become boring. I mean, he is still going to work, coming back. But life is not exciting until recently he found a new goal. Then life become an adventure again. So why setting goal is important? It is keeping you a vision fresh and your life exciting. Next one is why. When you do your day-to-day goal setting, you will find that don't worry about what you write today or what you wrote yesterday. Just keep on writing. You will find that over a period of time, there are a couple of items appear regularly on your list. These are the items matter to you. Then take your time to write, why am I have this kind of things I want to do? The why is the glue between your goal and you. If you know your why, you will not quit halfway because you have the desire to go all the way. So know your why. Next one is how. Okay, I have my goal. I know the why. Then how am I going to achieve it? This year, I had a crazy idea. I say, hey, Katrina, how about have additional $30,000 this year? And then number is not difficult for me. Thank you. Number is not difficult for me. Therefore, I take $30,000, I divide it by 12 months, divide it by 4 weeks, get into the detail. I need $620 a week additional income for me to reach that goal. Internet is very, very resourceful for you to look for information to reach your goal. To me, $625, I look into the internet to see what my peers do. I can either raise my fee or sell more item to my client, or I will work a little bit longer, or I find a part-time job. So there are options. People say that if there is a will, there is a wish. So that it is, yes, then go research. Internet, you can also talk to friends, family, and brainstorm your step to reach your goal. So how to reach your goal? Last one is what? What task I need to do to reach my goal? Oh, thank you. What do I need to do? So let's go back to my goal of that 30 grand. It's easier for me to talk about it. So I need $625. Then I look at all my practice, I notice that I have a lot of referral from CPAs, from David, or from title company, escrow agent. So I go into the internet and say, okay, let me research. I find all the escrow agents in Tucson. Then I list it out. I thought, well, if I have more escrow agents refer me clients, 625, I only need 1 or 2 clients, I'm done a week. Therefore, my task is I write cards to 2 agents a day. Follow up with a flower with a card asking their permission for me to meet them face by face. Then Some of them say yes, some of them say no. It's okay, it's all numbers. To those people that say, yes, Katrina, I can meet you 10 minutes. I met them and let them know that these are the things that I do. I can help you, your clients. If you cannot help me, please send it my way. And that's it. After they meet me, I send them another card. Thank you for taking your time to talk to me. In there, I put 2 more business cards. If you need help with your client, please send my way. And these are my daily chores. Make your objectives, your chores as clear as whistle. You can just check, 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 check. I done this, and then life will move on. So that is a what task I need to do in order to reach my goal. The last one is give yourself a time. Time bound is important because when you have a time strain on yourself, you will focus. You will have your laser focus on what you are doing. But some people say, how about if I did not finish it in time? It is okay. Give yourself more time for it. The philosophy of it is once you focus, your life is moving and moving toward the goal, and it's very exciting, very exciting. My conclusion is think ahead and plan ahead. Surround yourself with people who have committed passion with a common goal. For example, Jimmy is going to do the debt reduction. If you know some of us want to do debt reduction, let's get together. We encourage each other. Committed passion with a common goal. And anything is possible. I know that I have 20 years of active, productive life, I think, if God's willing. Yes, of course, right? I would love to travel 50 states of United States. I want to write a book. There's a piano lesson that I want to continue. I want to learn how to paint. I have a company I'm currently creating. It is an adventure. And if you believe it, it is possible with the Lord's blessing. And thank you for your attention.
The pastor has dealt with more with debt and debt removal and how to handle it. It certainly ties into credit. And some of you here may have kept your credit good and excellent your whole life. And that's good. But some have been up and down, and some are been through some financial challenges that created a need to go back and try to get their credit set up. So how did this credit thing begin? And let me piggyback on what she's saying real quick. For goals and so forth, I always start my week and my day with a things to do list. So I have that list and I write everything on there, and then that's what my focus is for the week. Like she said, she wants to increase customers, and I did too this year. And then I wanted to change my marketing style because last summer I sell solar. And so last summer I was getting them the old-fashioned way. Besides some of the pastors and others who were referred, I was knocking doors to do it. Now, I've learned how to knock doors and not be afraid of people from ministry. So ministry had very good value for me, as well as other spiritual value. But 104 degrees, I get pretty dark in the summer when I'm out there knocking. And so I said, this year, I don't want to knock anymore, but I have to keep up that level. So I have put other things in with marketing, and they're beginning to work very well. The Lord is blessing. I work for a company that's 8 minutes from my house, And that company's been around for 10 years, and nobody was there in marketing, and they turned all the marketing efforts to me. Every phone call comes in, every hit to the website, they all come to me. There's no way I could have gone and set that up. I've worked for several companies who half of them took most of the money I made last year. And I have no way to get it back. I mean, yeah, I had to pray, because you want to just go over there and say, who can I put in a full Nelson here? You know, because it was just stealing. But when you look at the legal documents, your ability to get it back would be so difficult, because the way they paper it, you know, they just had to be honest, and there were just so many crooks in this industry. So in that, I had to learn that, set my goals. I had put 15 sales up, and I probably got paid on maybe a half of it. And I said to myself, and I've mentioned this to you all, I got on my knees and I argued with the Lord. They stole my money. How you going to let them steal my money? And then I just resigned myself, Jimmy, go get 15 more. And the Lord blessed. And I put those sales up and I continue. And then I found these guys, and they're right near me. And it's just been a huge blessing for that. And I just turned in my first commercial bid, which is $1.5 million. So the Lord is blessing efforts. So I would say to anybody here, by God's grace, and I've said this from the front, nobody is locked into the financial position they're in today. No one is. Because if you set the goal, put it before God, I'm not talking about name it, claim it, I'm not talking about wealth, I'm talking about what you need to get by and to take care of your family ably. The Lord blesses those efforts. And like Katrina said, there are so many things on the web now that weren't there, that you can just sit there and study until you find something. You need an extra $400 or $500 a month. If you keep working at it, it's out there on the internet. Many people make that without ever leaving their house. They're still thorough about what they do, but they do it without leaving their house. So let's talk about credit and finance. How did all this credit stuff set up? Because really, God's economy was not really based so much on credit. But I believe there was a degree of credit. And I don't think that the use of credit is sinful. But one must be careful to work within their means and ultimately to move to where they work pretty much debt-free. But it's pretty difficult to do many businesses without any money. And if you're just going to try to get money off of your sales, it can take some difficulty. So you may need some seed money. So the credit, back in the 60s, there wasn't much in the way of credit. And then credit started kicking off in the 70s. And it started becoming available. But there was no way to track whether you were legitimate or not. Now, I really don't like those guys, Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, because there's this system where if something negative comes in, now I have to prove that it wasn't legitimate just because it's set in. Now, let me say this. The credit bureaus do not go get that information. That information is pushed to them by other systems such as Nexus and other systems that are out there. They push all that negative, all those public judgments or anything you have. So my credit took a hit when I had that IRS lien until it was satisfied. And then there are ways legally to get it removed off your credit. And as soon as I got that removed off my credit, it started to take off. So there are lots of ways to use within the system legally to get it off there. Because the way these guys try to do it is they want to keep a lot of things around for 7 years. And they use that. I guess that's a biblical mindset, but here it's a corporate mindset. Because as long as they keep your scores down, then you are paying more for everything you do unless you pay cash. Every financing that you do. So these guys were set up to track those individuals who really didn't. They were just going around putting in credit and then relocating so they couldn't find them. So I can see a reason for the system based on that, but as much of capitalism, it becomes later just about the money. All right, so let's see. A credit reporting bureau is a company they keep track of all your information, everything you do, except they don't keep track of things like necessarily your cell phone bill unless you default on it. It won't show up on there. any kind of utilities, all of these bills that you may pay very timely and never shows up there. But anything that's a credit, a creditor connects him or herself, Macy's, your car, your bank, they all connect themselves to the credit bureaus, and then they report to them whether you pay timely or not. So what is timely or untimely payments? A lot of people used to come into the mortgage company and they would say, well, I didn't pay that on time. What is considered a late? So the credit card may say your bill is due on the 12th, and you should pay it by the 12th or before. But if you are considered late, it's after 30 days where it gets reported to the credit bureau. So you could constantly be paying your credit bill on the 18th. You shouldn't, because they're going to hit you with fees every time. But that's never a negative as far as these guys are concerned, because it does not get reported unless you are more than 30 days late. So again, this is established so the companies can keep track and know what's going on. So though we should have some credit, Dave Ramsey, who's out there, who got his information from, what was that, Mr. Burkett? What was his first name? Larry Burkett, who really was more, I would say, a lot more spiritual than Dave Ramsey is. Although Dave Ramsey has not differed from the principles of how God would have things done, except sometimes around tithing. He will argue that until your debt is paid, you shouldn't pay your tithe. And I would beg to differ. So other than that, he's pretty accurate, but he's created a conglomerate around this whole idea. But principally, there's nothing wrong with the process that he used. There have been many people who, through his program, have been able to become debt-free. So in terms of his work here with helping it, he's very solid. And he pushes, once you have, that you should give. He said you can live like nobody else so that you can give like no one else. And the pastor dealt with that so well in the message earlier today. So I had sound effects, but they won't work now. So, like I said, in the 70s, and then they created a SQL database invented by IBM that keeps all your information and all your files. If you're here in the United States, you got a social security number, and that number follows you around everywhere you go. And things that you do, you may think it's done in the dark, but it's going to come out. But look at how that works. Here's you up on the top. Is there a pointer? That's you. The bureaus collect this information, and they're interchanging back and forth. But there are often errors in your credit that you have the ability to dispute. Now, a lot of them can be disputed right online, right directly on their site. You can dispute, hey, I want to have this removed. Here's the reason why. That was never me, da-da-da-da-da. And then the credit reporting bureaus have 30 days to respond to any request you ask. 30 days. So some people have used that, maybe not in the best way, because if you keep asking every 30 days, which you can, then one day they may not answer. And then once they can't answer it properly, it has to go away. They have to remove it. So that's how it works. So in the 90s, they established the Fair Credit Reporting Act by Congress. So, again, these guys were a little out of hand and roughshod. So they said, we've got to monitor these groups, because credit can destroy you. Negative credit. Now, if you're debt-free and you don't owe anything, living by God's principle, there's only so much they can do to you. But they can put a mark on you that can cause issues. So the important things, time payments, defaulter write-offs, account openings, all of these have an effect on your credit and so forth. Sometimes I will go into individuals' houses and they'll apply for solar and they won't qualify. Now, you can use a co-borrower. And this may be more common amongst the Latino market space than I've seen. And they'll say, oh, my friend Jorge will sign for me. And I'm like, he will? Is he on the title? Because you're about to put sometimes between $20,000 and $30,000 worth of panels on your roof. and he's going to co-sign. But I don't think there's a concept they have with how does that affect me. So the pastor has dealt with this, but I'll address it again. A co-signer is really not co. They trick you with that term, co. You are basically just as required as the individual who has that debt. And guess what? They know when they don't pay it, but you don't. And you may not know it for a while till it shows up. One of my clients who just bought solar about a month ago, we just finished installing his solar, Jonathan, a nice guy. He said his parents started using his credit and bought 2 homes with his credit. So he went to apply for credit for his own home, and he couldn't get it. And then they defaulted on one of the homes. So once you get in a mess like that unwinding things like that, like somebody stealing your credit or whatever, those who may be tight-fisted have something that monitors your credit. Because by the time you wake up and know, this person has become you. If from a credit standpoint, they purchase things, they got stuff, and like him, he didn't know, and they had those houses for over a year. He didn't know until he went to apply himself. So we should never, given the world we live in, have this choice. I'm just going to trust the Lord and pray about it. That's part of it. But the Bible says be wise. So if I'm going to be wise, I know what my credit is. Maybe cost me $12 or $15, $18 a month. And then I'm going to give you 2 sources that where you can get all 3 credit sources without paying for anything. And they'll track and let you know every time your credit gets pulled, boom, it sends you a notice for it. As long as you deal with any kind of loan, we use what's called a tri-merge. So we're looking at all 3 bureaus. So you need to know where your score is on each separate bureau. But sometimes when you go apply for a credit card, they may say, well, we use TransUnion, and that'll be the only one they use. And TransUnion may be your troubled score because they haven't cleaned up stuff that the other 2 have cleaned up. I'm speaking directly myself. So I have issues with them. I still have a pretty good score with them, but my best score is with the other 2 because they still have stuff I need to get off that they haven't removed. So whenever you apply for something, if you need to, say, what are you using? And they'll say, well, we use all 3. So one of the finance companies I use for solar uses all 3. And if any one of them are at the given score of 650, they'll approve you. Another one I use, all they use is TransUnion. So you just have to know and then look at where your scores are before you go. Just don't go willy-nilly pulling credit. Hey, you know how you go to the department store and say, yeah, you get all that, and we'll give another 10% off if you get a credit card. That's how it can start, right? And then if you've already had some damage in your credit, it's likely not going to go through. And sometimes these credit card companies are underwritten by certain other banks who have very strict requirements. Everybody is not that way, but you need to know before you decide to use any kind of credit. But that's how it worked. So when I was in the mortgage industry, we would see a tri-merge. I'm looking at everything to see where it is. And TransUnion, again, might have something that Equifax doesn't have, or Experian might have something that the other guys don't have. But you want to clean all of that up. And all it is a process, papering them and so forth with information, and it'll get removed. Again, the law deals with that. So how do they calculate your score, which can go from anywhere from 300 to 850? I don't know how you get to 300. I've never seen one of those. I have heard people say I got real bad credit. They've been in the 400s. That's the worst I've seen. But I guess you can get down that low. 850 is definitely the top mark. But if you're in the mid-upper 700s, that's pretty much excellent credit. Anywhere above 750 and up with all 3 is there. So how do they calculate it? First, payment history. So anything that's reporting to credit, you're paying it on time. That's the one thing that the amounts owed. So you may say, well, I got $20,000 worth of credit spread over 4 credit cards. So if any of those are above a 30 to 35% balance, now it's going to start to hit your credit. So a guy who's got 2 credit cards with 20,000 balance, who's using 10,000, is going to be in a tougher position if he or she needs to than somebody with 4 credit cards, all with where his balances can be mixed lower. He'll be able to be better off. But anything above 30 to 35% on your credit starts to knock you down. They look at it. Because what they're looking at is utilization. It really doesn't make sense to me if you look at it practically. Because if I got 5 cards worth 50 grand and I'm spending most of it on 1 card, I'm probably managing myself well. But they want me to spend it across the same money across 5 cards, and that's their system. So there's stuff in their system that isn't rational, but that's how they rate you. Length of credit history. So if you're new to the credit world, or you were knocked down and then you're coming back to the credit world, it's going to take a little while until they see payments consistent on things. Like if you've had a mortgage, rent doesn't show up anywhere. Only time rent shows up is when you don't pay it and you got a lien against you for it. So those don't show up. Any kind of car notes, they show up. So those are installment loans. So let's talk about the difference of a credit line versus an installment loan. An installment loan is a fixed number due every month. A credit card is a balance rolling over. They may only want $50 and you got $4,000 out there, or $75 for all this you have out there. That's all that's required. As long as that's paid, it's on time. So timely payments of installment and everything that you have on credit is very important. But then your length of time that you've had it, if you only had it for a year or 2, they're looking at you like, it's kind of like a car. You haven't driven long enough. I'm not going to give you really good insurance rate until I see a history that you might not hit somebody, right? Any new credit is 10%, and your types of credit. Again, I said mortgages versus cars. Those are both installment loans versus credit cards or line of credit. All of these are different types of credit. What the credit bureau likes to see is a mix of those. Now, ultimately, again, once everything is taken care of, if you have something, you might have a mortgage payment, maybe a car payment that you're accelerating, and then your credit cards. But if you're working as you would be as a Christian, when everything's set up, you have credit cards, but you're paying them off every month. You're not carrying your balance through that time. Now, if you're doing it to establish a business or things like that, I get it. You may put some things on there, and eventually you're going to get it back down. You can do it that way, but that's how it's viewed in the system. So, again, this breaks down the average, and demographically there are differences. You can see this is the pastor's land. He wasn't in it before, but now he's well in it. The Lord blessed. All right, so Asians, very high. African Americans, not so much. More struggle. They don't know how to handle finances as well, but also African Americans, Hispanics, they get redlined a lot. So they have loans that are given to them at very high interest rates. So they may struggle to try to take care of that. But if they are knowledgeable, they'll learn how to work their credit up where it won't be so bad. So this kind of breaks down those demographics a bit. And then they talk about card keepers and how long they had their cards. You can see the differences. I hit the wrong button. It'll come back. You can see the differences in the length of time. 10 years with credit, 22%, whereas it's 2% here. When individuals have that credit longer, that establishes them much better over time. Go ahead. What's the what?
Those who are lower on the lower.
Oh, yeah. I'm saying, in other words, when I say red line, red line is almost a demographics. Like they'll choose a certain area, and they did a lot of this in the mortgages. This is why FHA and some of the other things were put in place, because people of color were not allowed in certain communities. And when they would give them loans, they would give them higher interest rate loans. Even those who they found didn't necessarily have bad credit, and they didn't know. So they're in the same house paying, back in the day, somewhere around 9 or 10%, where their neighbor is paying 5 or 6, living in the same type of house. So we still have some of it. We still have some of it. It's not as bad. So once you know where your credit scores are and your credit profile, you know what you can qualify. So if your credit profile is very good and they're offering you some kind of high rate, then you know they're mistreating you. But be careful to interview them before you go in. And I'd like to say that demographics works for you, but it doesn't. So when I was in the mortgage industry, some of the greatest offenders I ran into were these individuals who didn't really know anything about mortgages, because back in that day, it was the wild, wild west. It wasn't regulated as well until 2008 when everything broke out. So before that, anybody who said they wanted to be a broker could be one. And guys would come into my office and I was hiring, and they say, yeah, I want to do it. And by the time I talked to them for 5 minutes, I'm like, you don't know nothing about the mortgage industry, but can I charge somebody 4 points? Because you could make the percentage off. So for numbers' sake, the average sale of a house over in Maryland was $400,000 to $500,000. If they're charging you 4 points, that's 4 times 4, 4,000 times 4. That's $16,000 just for the sale of your home that they were making, but they're running your interest up and all kind of. These guys didn't care. They didn't have a conscience. So I saw that amongst Africans, and I saw that amongst Latinos, and some amongst African Americans. It was black on black crime. They were very great offenders to people. So you have to be careful. Here's another thing to be careful of. If you're not sure you can qualify for a car, get a relationship with a credit union and talk to them first. Because when you go to some of these places to apply for a car, they're going to pull your credit 6, 7, 8 times easily. Because all they care about is that you get approved. That's all they care about. Now, if you're at a major dealer and he's got a exceptional special and you know your score is good, you may say, only for that program, I'll let you pull it. But when you go in there, once they go in the back room, if you could understand the finances and how it breaks down. When you look at a car dealership, you know who makes the most money? Anybody, huh? The boss, yeah. But who else? Salesmen make good money. A wholesaler makes the number one guy for income in there is the finance guy. He's the highest income. He's there from sun up to sundown, but after you got everything approved, you go in and he sits you down, he starts talking real nice. He's, well, that's great. You're going to need an extended warranty, Jimmy. I know you. I used to drive Audis. He said, you're not going to drive an Audi without an extended warranty. It's a used car. So he starts selling you all these upgrades, and then when he increases the cost that you're paying for the loan, he gets a percentage back. So does a mortgage broker. When we would do loans, I could offer you the current rate or maybe somewhere within a quarter of that, but the higher I go with the rate that I can get you to accept, the lender does what's called yield spread premium. It used to be on the side when you would look at your title sheet, and there'd be a number there, and nobody knew what it was. They changed that later. That's the money that's paid to the broker or the lender for giving you the loan. So they upsold your loan higher than what was called par. So if par is 6%, I sell you at 6 1/4. They're offering me another percent for increasing your cost. So I charge you 2% on the front, then I got a percent on the back that you don't even know what that number is. That's yield spread premium. So that's what can happen there when you're dealing with it. So be careful. Do all your research before you get into the finance. And this kind of breaks down demographics and where bad credit is. Unfortunately, a lot of, poor people, they have no clue about how to deal with credit. That's why when you go into communities like that, they have all these rent-a centers and stuff. Those are the biggest ripoffs that could possibly exist, is a rent-a center. But the rent-a center exists around this whole credit mindset that all I have to do is have the money for the week, right? I'm going to pay weekly payments. Then you're going to give me this big screen. Oh, yeah, the game is coming on. Making this kind of decision to buy around that, and they're punishing you. You paid for that TV 4 or 5 times over, and then they come back and get it at the end. But those communities, and this is why the people of God should be working in those communities. One of the things I am pushed to get involved in as the Lord gives me more time is to be in the inner city educating on finance, budget, on how to get out of here, on diet and health, to educate them, because when you educate them, that's when they desire to learn more about your God, because you've reached out and helped them. Christ went about ministering to the needs of people, and then he asked them to come follow me. So you have to meet them where they are. So that group doesn't know much. You have a lot of low credit score there, but not everybody. But it's very common to see that going on. So here this breaks down even more, some more about the payment history, how they look at it, your utilization. All of that is a big factor in what happens in credit. So here's one of the ways that you can get your credit score. And I believe this is Experian. Yeah, this is Experian. So if you go to credit.com, you can get your credit score from them 100% free. And then you can look at it anytime. It'll email you back and forth, and it keeps track of it. There's a lot of places where you can go get credit information, but you can't get your score. So this is one of the ways to get it without paying a dime for it. Here's the second way to get it. For the other 2 scores, TransUnion and Equifax, is Credit Karma. Doesn't cost you anything, nothing. It's an app you can have on your phone, or you can get it on your computer. It'll keep track of where your score is. It'll show you your entire credit report, and it'll tell you, here's things you need to do to clean that up. All right? So those are 2 ways, and you can know what all your credit is without paying anything. And then there's some other services you can buy that may cost you $18, and they'll keep track of it, and they'll help dispute things. And then if you want to go to the next level, there are some credit repair companies that can help get your scores up. But a lot of it is there. I forgot to put a copy of the book that I have. Jimmy, where's my, wait a minute, I have my backpack. See if you see my backpack in the back. I think I have a copy of the book that I had got for $40. And it talks everything about credit and how to deal with it. Did you see it in the back over there? You know where it is? Okay, he's going to get it. But I'll give you that information as well so you can know. So again, this is summarizing. Again, once you hit about 7:30, really at about 7:20 across the board, you can get almost anything that you want. They still will look at your history. So if you newly got to that number and don't have a deep history, you have to be careful applying for stuff, because every time you apply, it's about a 3-point hit to your credit score. It's going to keep dipping. And that's where a lot of people, they're just not knowledgeable of credit, and they'll say, somebody will say, well, that didn't work, let's try this. And they're just banging their credit down. It probably wasn't nothing but 600 anyway. By the time they leave there, they're 580 from just them. Because the creditor does not care. These people, thank you, sir. These people don't care at all. I should have had a picture of it here. It's called Credit Secrets. So it's $40, and it breaks down everything about how you can get your score up. And they have great programs and information, but this is just $40, and they give you 3 books. This is just the initial book, the pamphlet they give you that gives you a breakdown. Then you can download the book. There's one on business credit and a thicker one for your regular credit. So if you have a lot of questions, this is there. And then you can find it on creditsecrets.com. It's a really good, inexpensive way to get it done. But often, other sources can be very valuable at helping get things done. And finally, because of the Fair Credit Act, every year you're entitled for free to a copy of your credit report. Now, they're not going to give you a score, but they'll give you a full copy of your credit report. So that's right there at annualcreditreport.com. And when you type that in, probably on Google, somebody's going to be above it, and you're going to think it's them. Don't click on it. It's somebody trying to make you pay. This one is legitimately free. So just type that in your browser, and that will do it. So I'll open the floor if there's any questions on. I know, Ben, you were mentioning like, hey, no matter what I do, I can't seem to get my credit up high enough. Before you tell us anything, sometimes if you don't have enough credit, it's hard to move that ball. You're new to credit and you have 1 or 2 things there and that's it. It's only going to be time that moves it. But tell me, if you don't mind sharing, what's the specific situation? Do you, huh?
I think it's what you said. I only have like 1 or 2 cards and that's been 10 years.
Well, it doesn't need to be 10 years, but if you only have 1 or 2 cards and you have nothing else, what's the maximum balance of any?
At one time, I think it was like 800.
What's the maximum credit limit, I mean?
Credit limit, like 3,000.
Yeah, see, over time, when, huh? He said when he was at 800, but he's not there now, I don't think, on the credit. But if you are staying above 30% constantly, it's not going to move. So what you can do is find some credit unions. Is your score pretty good? If you find a good credit unions are different than banks. A lot of people like to run to the bank for everything. The bank is, you got to be squeaky clean. Like, you got to have enough money that they could borrow from you before they lend close to that, before they'll do anything with you. Whereas credit unions are very good. I used SunWest, but who's actually better is Top CU or Old Pueblo Federal Credit Union. They were very reasonable. They gave me a better limit than with the than with SunWest. First time. So you gotta shop around, find like a credit union or something, and build it with there. I would prefer to bank with credit unions and so forth. So these big guys, even though I have accounts there, both business and personal, now it's easy because they're everywhere. You know, some of them with their blue hue, they're on every corner. So it makes it easier for you. Go ahead and then I'll go to.
So just with credit unions, they have the National Credit Union Association. So even if you need to use it somewhere else, you can use it.
You can still use it.
As long as they're part of NCUA.
So you can. Do you use a credit union now? I'd definitely go use it if I were you. Go set it up. I bet you if you already have a line of 3,000 and apply for 5, they'd probably give it to you. If your scores are pretty decent, they would probably give it to you. Well, if used, it might be even better. I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to just add to what you were telling me. This is really good. I have both accounts. Actually, I have accounts at Federal, Hughes, and Arizona Central. I really like Arizona Central because I think I had an account with them since I was 18. But I don't know, I feel like they're kind of on the down, but it's kind of on the up. But I got my car loan through Hughes, and for a first-time buyer at 20 when I had like
Wow.
credit at all, they gave me a really low interest rate. It was like I think like 2 point something percent, and I was able to
that's
pay off
huge.
my car like in no time. So yeah, check them out for sure. Hughes has really good programs.
Okay, Henry?
Does the church have a credit union or bank?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Can you answer that?
So, it's a good question. We used to have something called a revolving fund that individuals could invest in. And for decades, that was the one way. So the way that it works is the revolving fund, and we still have it in place, but we are not allowed to invest as individuals anymore because California changed their laws and our union is based in California. So the way that it worked was, let's say you have $10,000. I'm just throwing out a number. You have $10,000, you want to invest it into the Adventist church. The interest rate is about 5.5%
Wow.
return,
Yeah.
which is great, by the way, just so you know, if you don't know your interest rate. But that's a pretty good interest rate for doing nothing.
Yeah.